All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Nicole, and welcome back to our English class. Welcome to today's session. In this lesson, we are going to focus on a very important academic skill, which is on describing data, trends, and graphs clearly. So, this is especially useful for tests or exams like IELTS and TOEFL, where you are often asked to analyze a chart, describe changes over time, or talk about comparisons. In both speaking and writing tasks, you might have to describe how something increases or decreases or changes over time. No, in general, you will need the right vocabulary, the correct grammar structures, and a clear way of organizing your ideas. Today, we will learn how to use useful terms or vocabulary like rise, all those verbs, all those vocabulary, all those words or terms that will be included in this particular focus or particular topic. We will practice how we pronounced properly those particular terms. Even if you are not taking the IELTS or TOEFL right away, this skill is useful for academic presentations, reports, and even business English because these words that we will be encountering for today. These are not just exclusive for exams like IELTS and TOEFL. It is of course useful for everyday conversation or academic conversations. So let's get started with some set of phrases, no, I mean set of terms. So we will have the first set of terms, which is under strong certainty. So here we are focusing on strong certainty. All right. For a moment. Oh no. All right. These are the first set of terms. I'm sorry. That's not the first set of terms. Yeah. I have a kind of mixed up in here, but we will continue. All right. Again, we are going to focus on describing data, trends, and graphs clearly. Now, here are the first set of phrases or first set of terms, which is under describing general trends. Okay? All right. Now, first of the set is the word fluctuate. Again, fluctuate, meaning to rise and fall irregularly. So you can think of it like a wavy line that goes up and down without a clear, steady direction. So when we talk about something fluctuating, it means it's not following a smooth, predictable path. Instead, it is constantly changing. It is moving both upwards and downwards, but not necessarily settling at a higher or lower point. You can imagine, say for example, imagine the stock market. It rarely goes in a straight line or down, right? So it often fluctuates daily, sometimes increasing, sometimes decreasing, then perhaps increasing again. So the key here is that of the irregularity. That's that's the key that's the key word for what fluctuating means. There's no consistent pattern of ascent or descent over the long term. It's a series of ups and downs, basically. That's fluctuate. Okay, so you can use the word fluctuate when describing a line or a graph that shows several increases and decreases over a period of time. Like, say, for example, you will say the price of oil fluctuated throughout the decade, experiencing several peaks and downs. So it is also common when discussing things like temperatures, sales figures for seasonal products, for example, or for instance, or even the number of visitors of a tourist attraction that isn't consistently busy, we can use that. You can use this word, this term, to describe that particular subject. Okay? All right. Now, generally, the tone here, when you try to use fluctuate, it is neutral or objective. It simply describes a pattern of movement without, implying a positive or negative outcome. It just states the nature of the change. That's fluctuate. When it comes to pronunciation, there are fluctuate. Actually, there are three syllables that we are going to focus here. Although it sounds like there's two syllables only, but here there are actually three syllables. But let's just, let's look into what are these three syllables for fluctuate. Okay, starting with the first one, which is fl. Again, fl. It starts with an F sound, then an L sound. So we try to combine those two consonant sounds so we can get a consonant cluster. We how do you call that? We describe this particular blending of two consonant sounds as consonant clusters. So we blend the individual sounds of letter F and letter L so that we get a one sounding consonant cluster sound. Do we get it? So there's the F sound and then there's the L sound. So if we try to give the individual sounds, it will sound like first is the letter F, which sounds like, and then the letter L, which sounds like L. You try to combine those two individual consonant sounds, we get. It's not that clear, but there's the sound. It sounds weird, of course, because this particular consonant cluster, usually consonant clusters are dependent on its following or before of its following vowel or the vowel before it. The vowel before and after it. So that's why if you try to say the consonant cluster sound, it might sound weird. It doesn't make sense because there's two or more consonant sounds that are clustered together and blended the sounds together. So here, that is the first sound here would be the consonant cluster sound, and then it is followed, of course, with a vowel sound, which is a relaxed vowel sound. So it sounds like like UH, you say it as So when we try to combine the first and the second sound of this particular syllable, we get fl. Again, fl. Again, fl. It's quick. Okay? Following this, the second syllable would be, how do you call that? Fluck. Oh, for the first syllable, there's also a letter K. It ends with letter K. I'm sorry, I forgot. So, it ends with letter K, so we get fluck. Again, fluck. All right. And then the second syllable would be two. 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 It's not two, but two. Two. It's almost like the vowel sound is letter E. Okay? But it's not literally letter E. It's just in between O and E. Okay? So, two. Two. It's quick and unstressed here. And following this is eight. This is the eight sound, like in the past tense of eat. It sounds like that, and it is spelled like that. Now here, there's a clear A diphthong sound, right? There's a clear diphthong sound. Now again, what's a diphthong sound? It is when one vowel smoothly glides to another vowel sound. So basically, a diphthong is the combination of one vowel sound and another one vowel sound. So vowel sound plus vowel sound, we get a diphthong sound. And in here, the diphthong sound that it creates is A. The combination of letter E and E, letter E and E. So A. Again, A in 8. We try to put it together. We get fluctuate. It's not fluctuate because that's how the individual syllable sounds like, right? but we try to blend the sounds together more smoothly so that it will sound natural. We do not say fluctuate, but fluctuate. Okay? Fluctuate. Stress is on the first syllable. All right, that's fluctuate. Next word or term is surge. Surge, meaning to increase, to increase suddenly and powerfully. So you can think of a powerful wave hitting the shore, just an analogy or maybe a scenario in your mind that you can picture out. Well, here, when something surges, it doesn't just go up a little bit and it doesn't go up slowly. It experiences a rapid, significant, and often forceful increase. You can imagine a sudden rush of water or a sudden burst of energy. In data, this means a steep and quick upward movement on a graph. So it implies a strong, almost like overwhelming force behind the increase. So you can use this particular term when describing a sharp, a dramatic increase in data. Like for instance, you can say, there was a sudden surge in online shopping during the holiday season or during the pandemic. Okay? Or you can often use this term for things like electricity demand, like energy consumption surged during the heat wave because we tend to use the air conditioner. So something like that. We can use this particular word. Pronunciation wise, there's only one syllable. So it is a one syllabic word. Surge. Now we try to, since it's only a one syllabic word, we try to, break down the sounds in it. We start with the hissing sound. So you start here with a clear S sound. So there's a hissing sound in the beginning, which is the S sound or the S sound. Following this is like you can picture it out as the spelling ER. You just say it like that. Surge. So you try to hold the vowel sound here a little bit longer because as you can see on the IP transcription here, the vowel sound has a colon beside it, right? And as I've mentioned in our previous sessions, when an IP transcription, when a vowel sound in it has a colon beside it, we tend to hold that particular vowel sound a little bit longer. All right? So that's just a quick tip for when you are trying to read an IP transcription. Now going back, so here in the second syllable, not syllable, but in the second sound that for this word, which is we try to hold the letter E a little bit longer. So okay? Make sure your tongue is in the middle of your mouth and it is slightly pulled back because it is how your tongue is placed when you try to say the sound of the letter R. So just make sure you do that so that you can clearly and properly pronounce the letter R sound. So here the second sound is and then it ends with the J sound. So this is the J sound. And it looks like this in the IPA. That one. Oh. This one, yeah. That one is the IPA symbol for the J sound. So like J in jump or gym. So it's a soft J sound here. So surge. So it ends with J sound. And as you've noticed, we do not necessarily, but we do not really say the letter E sound at the end, right? Because there's a letter E at the in the spelling at the end of the word, so we do not say that. Which means that this particular letter is a silent letter. There's a silent letter E in this word. We do not say surgery, but we say surge. Okay? We end the word with a J sound. All right? So that is surge. Following this is plummet. Again, plummet means to fall suddenly and steeply. It's the opposite of surge. You can imagine a store dropping straight down. It's the very opposite of surge. So if something plummets, it doesn't just go down. It drops very quickly and dramatically from a high point. So it implies a loss of control or a rapid collapse. So you can think of like an analogy, maybe an airplane losing altitude very fast, something like that, or a ball dropping from a great height. In data, this means a very sharp, like steep downward line on a graph, like indicating a significant and rapid decrease, which is, of course, the very opposite of surge, because we know surge is rapid increase. All right? Okay. When it comes to pronunciation, there's two syllables that make up the word plummet. First is plum. It starts with a P sound, then an L sound, so it's a consonant cluster in the beginning, and then it is followed then with an a sound. Again, a sound or the UH sound, like in cup or butter, or yeah, that one. And then we end it with a nasal sound, which is the letter M sound. So we get plum. Again, plum. Following this is met, which starts with a nasal sound, still letter M, and then followed by a relaxed or a short E sound in the middle, and then it ends with the letter T sound. So that's met. Again, met. So we try to put them together, we get plummet. Again, plummet. The stress is on the first syllable, plum. Again, plummet. All right, that's the third term. Fourth is plateau. Again, plateau. It means to remain steady after rising or falling. So you can imagine a flat top of a mountain after climbing it. So when something plateaus, it reaches a certain level, like either high or low, and then stops changing significantly. It becomes relatively stable and flat. It's like a period of stagnation or equilibrium after a period of movement. So in data, this would look like a horizontal line on a graph following an upward or downward turn. Turn or trend. You can indicate that the rate of change has slowed down or stopped completely. So that's plateau. When it comes to pronunciation, there's two syllables that make up for it. First is pla. Pla, it starts with a P and L sound, or the consonant cluster sound, and then followed by a vowel, of course, which is a short A sound. Following this, the second syllable is tu. Tu. Plateau. Tu. It starts with a letter T sound and it ends with a short O sound. Okay, so we get plateau. Again, plateau. The stress is on the second syllable, tu. All right, tu. Plateau. Next, moderate. Again, moderate means to become less extreme or intense. You can think of something slowing down or becoming calmer. So when a trend moderates, it means that the rate of change becomes less dramatic. So if something was increasing very rapidly, it now increases more slowly. If it was decreasing very quickly, it now decreases at a gentler pace. So it's about a reduction in the severity or intensity of the movement, not necessarily stopping altogether, but certainly becoming less extreme. It suggests a move towards a more controlled or gradual change. That's moderate. Of course, you can use moderate here when a very sharp increase or decrease starts to slow down, just like I've mentioned earlier. Like for example, in a sentence we can say, after a steep rise, the rate of unemployment began to moderate. Something like that. Okay? All right. When it comes to pronunciation, there's three syllables that make up for it. First is mod. Mod, which starts with an M sound or the nasal sound. Then the O here is a short O vowel sound, like in dog or food. Yeah? Yeah. So we get that, and then it ends with a letter D sound. So we get mod. Following this is Very simple. We've already mentioned it earlier, right? In search. So it has a short E vowel sound. It ends with a letter R sound. So it's a very light, almost unstressed sound here. And then it ends with 8, also another familiar sound where it has, again, I've mentioned earlier, there's a clear A diphthong sound. 8. Now, putting it together, we get moderate. Again, moderate. The stress is on the first syllable, mod. Again, moderate. Next, stabilize. Again, stabilize. It means to become steady and consistent. So you can think of something becoming firm and not moving. That is stabilize. So when something stabilizes, it means it stops moving dramatically and it settles into like a steady, consistent state. So it often implies that something that was previously unstable or volatile has now found a balance. It's about achieving like equilibrium and maintaining it, of course. In data, this would look like a relatively flat or very gentle sloping line. It indicates that the data points are not changing much from one period to the next. Let's stabilize. When it comes to pronunciation, there's three syllables. There are three syllables. First is sta, again, sta, which starts with an S sound and then followed by a T sound and then followed by a short A sound. So sta. Following this is B. Very simple. It starts with a little B sound and a short E vowel sound. So you are just like saying the letter B. Yeah, the letter B. And then lastly, the final syllable is lies, which has a clear I diphthong sound. So the diphthong sound here is I. And of course, it ends with a buzzing sound. And in here, as you've noticed in the spelling, there's a letter E in the end. Of course, in the end. But we do not say it. We do not pronounce it, which means that this particular letter is a silent letter. We do not say stabilize, but we say stabilize. So that's the proper way to say this particular word. So there's a silent letter E in this word. Again, the word is stabilize. The first syllable is our stressed syllable here. Again, stabilize. All right, so these are the first set of terms for describing trends, graphs, and what are other things? Describing data, trends, and graphs clearly, which is under the specific topic on describing general trends. Of course, to see if you are following with me, it's time to practice. We will be having a practice drill, very short and quick and very simple. What I need you to do here is just to read the whole sentence with me. Of course, I've already highlighted the words or the terms we've discussed earlier. I just gave you a sentence where this particular word is utilized. So we're just gonna read this. We're just gonna read this together. All right, let's start. The number of online users fluctuated throughout the year, especially during holiday seasons. Electricity consumption surged in July due to extreme heat waves. Car sales plummeted in March following the economic downturn. After a sharp rise, the data plateaued and remained stable for 3 months. The growth rate moderated after several quarters of expansion. The unemployment rate eventually stabilized in the second half of the year, and that is the last word for describing general trends. Let's shall move on to another set of words or terms, which is on describing comparisons and contrasts. So when you get a graph, chart, or table in an IELTS or TOEFL, you are not just describing individual lines or bars. A significant part of your score will come from how well you compare and contrast the different elements with the data. So this means highlighting similarities where things are alike, and of course as well differences where things diverge or show opposing trends. So we will be looking at specific vocabulary that allows you to articulate these relationships clearly and precisely. We can move beyond simple more than or less than phrases. All right, starting with outpace, which means to grow faster than another thing. So when one entity outpaces another, it means it is moving, it is developing or performing at a higher rate. Imagine like two runners in a race. If one is consistently running faster and pulling ahead, they are outrunning or outpacing the other. So in the context of data, this usually refers to a line on a graph showing a steeper upward trend, or a bar in a chart representing a greater increase over a period compared to another. So it implies a clear lead in terms of speed or growth. That's outpace or outpacing. When it comes to pronunciation, there are two syllables that make up for it. First is out. Again, out, which is very simple. There is a clear diphthong sound here. The diphthong sound here is what? Ow. Again, the diphthong sound is ow. And then after that diphthong sound, we end it with a letter T sound. So we get out. Next is pace, which also has a clear diphthong sound. The diphthong sound here is A. Again, A. So we get pace. And there is a silent letter E in the end. Alright, we try to put them together, we get outpace. The stress is on the first syllable, out, so we get outpace. Next, lag behind, meaning to grow more slowly than something else or to fall behind. It is the opposite of outpace. So when something lags behind, it means it is progressing at a slower rate than a benchmark or another comparable item. You can think of a runner falling farther and farther back in a race. So in data, this would mean a line on a graph showing flatter or less steep upward trend or even a decline, while another element is increasing. So there's comparison always in here. It indicates that there is a deficit in performance or progress compared to something else. You are lag behind. Okay? Pronunciation wise, there are two words in here. And all in all, we get 3 syllables. First syllable is the first word, lag, which, has a short A vowel sound. It starts with an L sound and ends with a G sound or the G sound. So we get lag. Next is the second word, which has 2 syllables starting with B, the first syllable. This is a quick unstressed B sound. Okay? So the vowel sound here is short. Next is hind, which has a clear diphthong sound, I. So there's an I diphthong sound in hind. All in all, we try to put them together, we get lag behind. Again, lag behind. Stress is on the second syllable of behind, which is hind. Again, this is lag behind. Next is exceed. Again, exceed, meaning to go beyond a certain number or a certain limit or expectation. So when something exceeds something else, it means it has gone above, past, or beyond a particular point, a particular value or amount. So it's not just about being higher, but specifically crossing a boundary of your, a boundary. So in data, this refers to a figure that has surpassed a specific target, a specific average, or the value of another data point. So it often implies reaching a new high or breaking through a previous ceiling, something like that. So that's exceed. When it comes to pronunciation, there's 2 syllables. First is X. Again, X. ick only. Ick, which has a short E sound followed by a K sound. K sound. So, ick. Following this, the second syllable is seed. Seed. So, it has a long E sound, like in tree, fee, she. So, there's a long E sound in here. All in all, we get exceed. The stress is on the second syllable. So, seed, we say it again as exceed. All right. Next, underscore. Again, underscore, meaning to emphasize something clearly. So you can think of drawing a line under a word to highlight it, something like that. You want to underscore. So you want to draw attention to its importance or to make it particularly evident. So it's about highlighting a specific aspect of the data that is, significant or remarkable. Now in IELTS and TOEFL, you use it to point out a striking feature or a trend that stands out amongst others. You can make its meaning very clear to the reader. So it implies that the data strongly supports a particular conclusion or observation. That is underscore. Pronunciation-wise, there are 3 syllables for this particular word, starting with the first syllable un. So it's very simple. The first syllable, the vowel sound is quick and, relaxed and unstressed. It's like an sound, but then you pair it with the nasal sound or the letter N sound. So N. Next is der, which has a short E sound. It is an unstressed syllable. And then final syllable is the stressed syllable, which is score. Again, score. It starts with a consonant cluster of the letters consonants S and C, and then followed by a diphthong sound O. So there's a diphthong sound O here, and then it ends, of course, with a letter R sound. So this means that the letter E in the spelling, which is at the end, is a silent letter. So this is underscore. Again, underscore. Next, surpass. Again, surpass, meaning to do better than expected or to go beyond or become greater than another. That is surpass. You go faster than another. So it is similar to exceed, but surpass often carries a stronger connotation of superiority or achievement. If something surpasses another, it has not just gone beyond it, but it has done so in a way that suggests outperformance or greater accomplishment. So it's about outdoing something, whether it's an expectation or maybe a previous record or a competitor's performance. That is outdoing something, outdoing those particular contexts. Now in data, it means one figure has become larger than another. It often implies it has achieved a new high point in comparison. That is surpass. All right. Pronunciation-wise, of course, there are two syllables. First is sir. Sir. It sounds like sir, but it leans more on the O sound. So sir. Next is pass. Again, pass, which is our stressed syllable here. It has a short A sound, and then it ends with a hissing sound. So the word, it starts with a hissing sound and ends with a hissing sound. We put them together, we get surpass. Again, surpass. Next, and the last term for this set is align with, which means to be consistent or match with something. You can think of two things lining up perfectly. That is align with. When one thing aligns with another, it means they are in agreement, they are consistent, or they match up. It suggests harmony, it suggests similarity or support between different elements. Now, in data analysis, it means that a particular trend or figure or maybe as simple as behavior is in line with or corresponds to another trend, another expectation, another behavior, another theory. It implies just basically two or more pieces of data show a similar pattern or relationship that is aligned with. Pronunciation-wise, we start with align, which is two syllables. It starts with a short A vowel sound, and then followed by line, which has a clear I diphthong sound. And the letter E, no, there's no letter E, I'm sorry. The letter G, the letter G is silent here. Of course, as you can see on the spelling, there's a letter G right before letter N, and that the sound of letter G is not pronounced here. So it is silent letter. Again, this is a line. And then it ends with. So with, which has a short E vowel sound and uses the voiced TH sound. Again, this is with. Now, we are familiar with the two versions of TH sound, right? First is the voiced TH sound. Say, for example, with or the or this. And then the unvoiced or voiceless TH sound like thin, throw, thought, those words. Okay? So we put them together, we get align with. You stress on line. Align with. All right. And that is the last term for this set. Of course, same as before, it's time to practice. Let us see if you are following with me. All right, very short, very quick practice drill. Same pattern, same process. Let's start. Mobile usage outpaced desktop usage significantly by the end of 2022. Rural internet access lagged behind urban areas throughout the period. Exports in 2024 exceeded those recorded in the previous decade. The chart underscores the importance of renewable energy in future planning. Student enrollment surpassed all initial projections by mid-year. The revenue trends align with earlier forecasts from financial department, and that is the second set of terms. All right. Of course, we immediately move on to another set of terms, which is on describing movement and direction. So, when you are presented with a line graph, a bar chart over time, or any data that changes, you're essentially telling a story of how things move. Are they going up? Are they going down? Are they staying the same or moving in a more complex way or complicated way? Now, this section, this set of words, will equip you with a precise vocabulary to articulate these movements and their direction. It helps you create a clear and accurate picture of the data's journey. So it's about moving beyond simple, it went up or it went down. You move from that to more sophisticated and nuanced descriptions. All right, let's start with the first term, escalate, which means to increase quickly or intensify. You can think of a situation getting rapidly more serious. So that's escalate. So when something escalates, it's not just increasing, it is increasing in a way that suggests a growing intensity, growing severity or speed. So in data description, escalate, it refers to a trend that shows a rapid and often accelerating upward movement. So it implies a significant and sometimes concerning increase in magnitude or scale. That is escalate. All right? When it comes to pronunciation, there are 3 syllables that make up for the word escalate, starting with S, which has a short E vowel sound and ends with a hissing sound. S, which is also this particular syllable is our stressed syllable. So we emphasize there's this particular syllable. We held it a bit longer and say it a little louder. S. Following this is ka, which has a short, it's soft, it's quick. Ka. So it starts with a k sound or the letter K sound and ends with an a sound. Again, a sound, because as you can see on the IP transcription, it uses a schwa symbol here. Now, again, what's a schwa sound? It is a weak, short, relaxed, and unstressed vowel sound. Here, the vowel is Again, Next, the final syllable is late, which has also, we're familiar with this already. We've talked about it earlier. It has a clear A diphthong sound. All in all, we get escalate. Again, escalate. Next, decline. Again, decline means to decrease steadily. You can think of a gradual downward slope. So when something declines, it means it is gradually or sometimes quite significantly moving downwards. It implies a consistent reduction in quantity, in value, or activity over a period of time. So it's not a sudden drop like plummet, but rather a sustained trend of going down. All right, you can imagine maybe a population slowly shrinking over years or sales figures consistently decreasing quarter after quarter. Now, it suggests a weakening or reduction in something over time. That is decline. Okay, when it comes to pronunciation, there's 2 syllables. There are 2 syllables. First is de, again, de, which has a short unstressed E vowel sound. And then next to that is cline. Again, cline. We start with a consonant cluster followed by a diphthong sound I and ends with a nasal sound letter N. So this means that the letter E at the end in the spelling is a silent letter. So this is decline. Cline is the stressed syllable. Again, decline. Next to that is soar. Very simple. It means to rise quickly and dramatically. So we get a simple word here. When something soars, it experiences a very rapid and impressive increase, often reaching a high point. It implies a sense of effortless or powerful ascent, much like an eagle soaring high above the ground. That is soars. Now, when it comes to data analysis, soar refers to a very steep and significant upward curve on a graph. So it indicates a sudden and often unexpected leap in value or quantity. It suggests a remarkable and powerful increase, basically. That is soar. Now, since as you've noticed, it is a one-syllabic word, soar, so we stressed it as it is. Now, soar has a clear O diphthong sound. It starts with a hissing sound or the letter S sound and ends with a letter R sound. So we get it as soar. Again, soar. Next is also a simple word, dip, which means to fall slightly and briefly. You can think of your finger touching in water for a moment, something like that. That's dip. Now, when something dips, it experiences a small temporary decrease before usually recovering or continuing its previous trend. So it's not just, it's not a major like plummet or a steady reduction like decline, but it's just, a minor short-lived drop. Now, in data, of course, dip refers to a small, often brief downward fluctuation on a graph. It indicates a temporary setback or minor reduction. That is dip. Now, in pronunciation was it's just very simple. We start with the letter D sound followed by a short E vowel sound and ends with a P sound. So we get dip. Again, dip. Next is rebound. Again, rebound. Wait. Oh yeah, rebound. So rebound, it means to rise again after falling. Okay? You are rising again. You are collecting yourself to rise again. Now, when something rebounds, it recovers quickly after a period of decrease or difficulty. So it implies a return to a previous level or even a higher level after experiencing a downturn. So when it comes to data, it describes a line on a graph that initially drops and then quickly reverses direction, which shows an upward movement, of course. It suggests resilience and recovery. That is rebound. When it comes to pronunciation, there's two syllables. First is re. This is a short unstressed re sound, like in return. So there's a short vowel sound here. And followed by bound, which is the stressed syllable. There's a clear ow diphthong sound here. So ow is a diphthong sound. Again, this is rebound. Again, rebound. Lastly, we have taper off. Again, taper off means to decrease gradually to an end. So you can think of something slowly narrowing it until it disappears. When something tapers off, it means it gradually reduces an amount in size or intensity until it eventually stops or becomes very small. It's a slow and steady winning down, not just a sudden stop. Okay? All right. So in data, taper off describes a trend where an increase or decrease slows down and eventually levels out or approaches zero. It suggests a gradual conclusion to a trend. That is taper off. When it comes to pronunciation, there are three syllables all in all. We start with tay, which has a clear A diphthong sound, and per, simple. It starts with a p sound and ends with an r sound, which has a short e vowel sound. And then it ends with off. Again, off. Very simple. We start with a short O vowel sound and then letter F sound or the f sound. All in all, this is taper off, stressed on the first syllable. Taper off. Again, taper off. And that is the last word for this set of terms. All right. This is on describing movement and direction. Of course, same as usual, it's time to practice to see if you're still following with me. All right, same pattern, same process. Let's start. Fuel prices escalated during the final quarter due to supply issues. The number of daily commuters declined after the pandemic began. The housing market soared in the first half of the year. There was a slight dip in visitor numbers in April. After the crisis, job growth began to rebound. And lastly, interest in the new product tapered off toward the end of the year. And that is on describing movement and direction terms. All right, let's move on to the next set of terms, which is on describing accuracy and extremes. All right. So this is crucial for adding nuance and precision to your data descriptions because accuracy, we understand it as to how precise and correct your observations are, which often, when referring to figures or the reliability of data. Now, when it comes to reliability of data, it only means that there's consistency in there. That's reliability. So, extremes, on the other hand, it refers to highlighting the highest and lowest points, so the most significant differences or the most common elements within the data. Okay, so we are going to focus on those on the terms that are related to that. We start with marginal. Again, marginal means very small or slight. So you can think of something that is barely noticeable or just at the edge. That is marginal. When we describe something as marginal, it means it's barely significant, it's very small in amount, it just, at the boundary of being noticeable. It's not completely absent or zero, but its impact or size is minimal. We can use this in data analysis where marginal, as we know, it refers to a very slight change or very small difference between categories or a minimal contribution to one element. That is marginal. Pronunciation wise, there are three syllables. Starts with mar, which has a short a vowel sound, followed by g. So it starts with a letter J sound. Or yeah. And then followed by null, which has a short a vowel sound still. All in all, we put them together, we get marginal. First syllable is the stressed syllable here. Again, marginal. Next is substantial, which means large in amount or importance. When something is substantial, it means it is significant, it is considerable or large in quantity, in degree, or importance. So it's the opposite of marginal or negligible. So the data that you try to analyze here, when we use substantial, it refers to a noticeable and important change. A large difference between categories or a significant contribution of one element. It implies a meaningful impact. Okay? All right. When it comes to pronunciation, we have three syllables here. Following starts with sub, again sub, which starts with a hissing sound followed by an a sound, and then lastly b sound. Next to that is tan, substantial. And substantial. So it has a short a vowel sound. It starts with a clear consonant cluster sound of S and T. And then following that is shall, again shall, which has a schwa sound. So the vowel is quick, the vowel is unstressed, and how do you call that? Weak, unstressed, and relaxed sound. So that is shall. All in all, we get substantial. We have stan as the how do you call that? As has the emphasized syllable here, the stressed syllable. So substantial. Again, substantial. Next is negligible. So small that it is not important. That is negligible. It means so small that it's not important or worth considering. And that is negligible. So if something is negligible, it is incredibly small or significant that it can be practically disregarded. Okay? When it comes to data, negligible means a change or the difference that is so minimal that it has no real significance or impact on the overall trend or comparison. It's even smaller or less important than marginal. That is negligible. Pronunciation-wise, we have three syllables. Neg as the first one, which has a short e vowel sound. Follow this is li, which has a short e vowel sound. And then, there are four syllables, I mean. Then followed by G, which also has a short E vowel sound, and lastly we get ball. Again, ball, which has a short O vowel sound. All in all, we get negligible. Again, negligible. The stress is on the first syllable, negligible. Next is predominant. Again, predominant. It is more frequent or common than the others. That is predominant. You can think of the most noticeable or strongest element. That is predominant. All right? So when one element is predominant, it is like the most widespread, the most powerful, or the most influential among a group. It stands out as the leading or most common factor. You can do this in data analysis, where predominant word, it refers to the category, to the trend or factor that is most frequently observed. It holds the largest proportion or exerts the most influence over the others. Basically, it just, helps identify the main characteristic of or feature of the data that is predominant. Okay? Pronunciation wise, there are 4 syllables in here, starting with pre, which has a clear consonant cluster at the beginning. The sounds of the consonants P and R makes, we combine the individual sounds and get the per. That's the per consonant cluster sound. Of course, it doesn't make sense on its own, so we try to add some vowels after it, which is here a short e vowel sound, pre. And then following this, the second syllable is dom, which has a short o vowel sound. And then following this, the third syllable is an e itself. It is short and unstressed. And lastly, nant, short a vowel sound. Okay? All right. We put them together, we get predominant. Dom as the stressed syllable. Again, predominant. Next to this is consistent, which means always behaving or happening the same way. You can think of something reliable and unchanging. That is consistent. When something is consistent, it maintains the same pattern, the same quality or behavior over time or across different instances. So it implies reliability, uniformity, and lack of significant deviation. You can imagine a person who always arrives on time, or a machine that produces the same quality every product every time. Okay? In data, consistent refers to a trend that shows us a steady and changing pattern or set of rules that remain relatively stable without major fluctuations or deviations. It denotes reliability and predictability in the data. Okay? When it comes to pronunciation, there are 3 syllables in it. First is con, we're familiar with that, short O vowel sound. And then sis, still with a short E vowel sound at this time. It starts with a hissing sound and ends with a hissing sound. And lastly, tent, which has a short E vowel sound. Okay? So we get consistent. Sis as the stressed syllable. Consistent. And lastly, we have the last word or term for today's session. And the last term for describing accuracy and extremes, which is accurate. Again, accurate. It means correct and without mistakes. That is accurate. You can think of something being exactly right. So when something is accurate, it is kind of like precise. They are exact and they are free from error. It means it reflects the true state of affairs or measurements. So you can imagine a perfectly aimed shot or a calculation that is exactly right. That's, how we can remember that particular instance because it's related to this. All right? Okay. All right. So here, accurate in data, when we use that particular word, you're aiming for an accurate description. So which means your interpretation and presentation of the figures are correct and reflect what the graph truly shows. Sometimes you might also use it to comment on the data itself if it's really reliable, if its reliability is implied. That is consistent. Okay? First, pronunciation wise, first is con, which is a short O vowel sound, followed by con. I know, not con, but ak. Ak. We are inaccurate. I'm sorry. Ak is the first syllable, which has a short A vowel sound, following with Q. Q. So here, this is the IP symbol of the Y sound, right? So there's a Q, which sounds like KYO. Okay? Q. And then lastly, rate, which has a clear diphthong sound, A. So we try to put them together, we get accurate. Again, accurate. One more time, accurate. All right. Okay. That is on accurate. And I think that is the last set of words. All right. I think that is the last set of words. Let me see. All right. Yes, those are the last set of terms for describing data, trends, and graphs clearly. Now, all in all, in this session, we have, I'm sorry for that, that is, we, okay. For this session, we focus on describing data, trends, and graphs clearly. So we focused on sets that are describing general trends, like let's just read that because it's very simple. So under which are fluctuate, surge, plummet, plateau, moderate, and stabilize. Next is describing comparisons and contrasts. For terms include outpace, lag behind, exceed, underscore, surpass, and align with. All right. Third is on describing movement and direction: escalate, decline, soar, dip, rebound, and taper off. Again, taper off. And lastly, we have describing accuracy and extremes, under which we get marginal, substantial, negligible, predominant, um, what are other terms that were mentioned earlier? But anyway, that is on accurate. Yeah, that is on describing accuracy and extremes. And those are the we've covered how do you call it? Four sets in total, everyone. So great work today. We've covered a lot from general trends to describing accuracy and extremes, which are more advanced phrases or words. So you've also practiced using the correct verb tenses and organizing your descriptions clearly. Now remember, in IELTS and TOEFL, it's not just what you say, it's how clearly and accurately you describe the data. The goal here is to help the listener or reader understand the trend quickly or logically. All right? Okay. So keep reviewing the vocabulary, everyone, and the sentence patterns. Maybe we, those terms that we kind of like, um, where am I? Like, kind of like follow, okay? Because, consistent practice can really help you a lot. All right. Now, in here, since we're focusing on the context of IELTS and TOEFL, now remember, in both these tests, it is not just what you say, it is also how clearly and accurately you describe the data. Of course, the goal here is to help the listener or reader understand the trend quickly and logically. That is on this particular food. I know not food, sorry, where did it come from, but this particular subject. All right? Okay. Just since I've provided sample sentences, right? I've provided sample sentences for you. So just, everyone, keep reviewing the vocabulary and sentence patterns you practiced today. Try to describe graphs or charts you see in real life, on the news, online, or in reports, just like we did in the class, of course. Next time, we will build on this by practicing full responses so you can feel confident and and fluent when describing visuals under time pressure next time. But there's another focus for the next session, which will be, of course, uncovered later on. All right? Okay. Well done. And I guess this is it for a moment. All right. Okay. That is it. So well done, and see you next time, everyone, in our next session.
Goodbye and have a great rest of the night.